Good evening and welcome to tonight's Undaunted, bringing to the news on top stories. I am Oyin Okmala. Let's begin. In the heart of the savannah zone of the Federal Republic of Ambazonia, grief has once again struck with merciless force. The recent attack on Gidado village left 14 innocent lives extinguished, including 9 women, 2 toddlers, and a 70-year-old grandmother, and 10 more wounded, victims of violence so senseless it defies comprehension. Homes were reduced to ashes, granules burned, and livestock slaughtered, stripping families of fragile security they once knew. For the people of Gidado and countless villages across the southern Cameroons, life has become a fragile threat. Consistently and constantly threatened by violence, it seems to have no end. Mothers mourn children they will never hold again. Families wander among the ruins of their homes, and communities are left to pick up the shattered pieces of their lives with no promise of protection or justice. The cycle of bloodshed and loss has eroded hope, leaving generations to wonder if there will ever be a tomorrow free from fear, a tomorrow where they can plant crops, celebrate birthdays, or simply live without the shadow of death looming over them. In the midst of this despair, the human spirit is tested in ways most can scarcely imagine. If you want, I can also do this in several ways. Now, all these and more we'll talk on tonight's Undaunted. But first, let's get the prime headlines. On tonight's Undaunted, we take a look at 14 civilians killed, 10 injured in early morning attack on Gidado village. Also tonight's indefinite U.S. visa ban threatens to deepen sufferings of southern Cameroon communities. Tonight on Undaunted, we take a look at the question mark over 55 billion CFA as Ambazonia's wealth vanishes into colonial state accounts. Also, French Cameroon's rising debt tightens the Noose on Ambazonian zones. Tonight, U.S. secures $500 million from first Venezuelan oil sale on the new energy deal. And on the global scene, Trump's administration ends temporary protected status for Somalis, forcing thousands to leave U.S. by March 17th. Now, let's get the news in full briefings. The recent attack on Gidado village in Savannah zone of the Federal Republic of Ambazonia has left 14 civilians dead, including 9 females and 10 injured. According to reports, armed men stormed the village, firing indiscriminately into homes and targeting families as they slept. The victims include 2 toddlers aged 2 and a 70-year-old woman. The attackers also resulted in widespread destruction, with 6 houses and 2 grannies burned and livestock killed or injured. The identified victims are as follows: Rihanna Tadi, 2 years old, Mohamadu Aminu, 2, Nana Kajida, a 6-year-old female, Asmu Amadu, a 9-year-old female, Basiru Jabiru, a 10-year-old, Mohamadu Gaddafi, an 11-year-old, Abubakar Amadu, a 17-year-old, Jimalatu Amadu, 21 years old, Ladafu Tura, 29 years old female, Biba Alhaji Tadi, 39, Hajari Alahaji, 48 years old, Adama Suli, 50 years old, Alahaji Julie, 60 years old, Adama Alahaji, 70 years old. The French Cameroon government has launched an operation to track down those responsible and is covering the medical expenses of the wounded. This attack is said to be attributed to unknown gunmen who are sanctioning the Mbororo community for sitting with French Cameroon army. The conflict in Ambazonia has been ongoing since 2016, with civilians bearing the brunt of the violence. The war in Ambazonia has resulted in a grave, significant humanitarian crisis with over 1.5 million people in need of assistance, over 334,000 internally displaced, and over 76,000 fleeing to neighboring countries. The war has also led to the deaths of over 60,000 people since 2016. All right. The question tonight is, what step can be taken to address the root causes of the conflict in Ambazonia? And also, how can the international community support efforts to find a peaceful resolution to this war? Barrister Mbeseha, welcome to tonight's Undaunted.
Thank you for having me.
Days are going, the new year just began, but deaths are already being counted. Tonight is a huge number, and it's about the clashes. Of course, when there is no peace, the people suffer. Let's get to hear your thoughts on tonight, on this report.
Well, when there is no peace, people suffer. Yes, people have died, 14 of them in one stretch, in one village. That looks terrible. That's wonderful. That's not a thing that anybody wanted. But is that as a consequence of war? I think so. But I think it is overstretching it. Because these are not 14 people dying under crossfire. It's not crossfire that kills them. It's not an attack of a military organized group of people, call it the B, who attacked them. They are unknown people. But these people are linked to the war. The event is linked to the war, the ongoing war for 9 years. Is this new? Of course not. We've had these attacks before. We've had similar things. What is the difference between what is going on now, what is going on now, and what went on in Gidado? In Gidado, I think 9 or 10 people died. They included children, they included pregnant women, and so on and so forth. But the most important thing I take from it is this. The war was not meant to be this. If we're fighting against the occupier, those villagers are not the occupiers. So the war should never have gone to this level. But it's there. The only thing we can do is to ask why and how it got to that level. You see, I was able to listen to Mimi for and other people who quickly attributed it to Amba boys, separatists, which to me is very, very faulty. It's not right. Because I also saw on that very social, there were people talking, standing there with cutlasses talking. Therefore, these are people we can interview. And they promised to go down the village and occupy an Hausa man's house. And an Hausa man's house is not an Amba camp. And so from the character of the attack, you can attribute it to somehow the war. And then you can look at the fine prints of what happened, or what might have happened there. Taking a cue again from Gidado, we know that what happened in Gidado, officially reported, is that the government recruited ordinary people, Fulanis or Buru, whatever they were, gave them arms, who went down and killed people in Gidado. And according to the government, they came back and disappeared with the guns. Nobody has been held accountable up to this date. Can this be a continuation of the thing? Maybe. But we spent quite a lot of time on these channels talking about the Bororo and the Fulani conflicts that has been going on for a while. The Fulanis infiltrating the Bororo infiltrating the Fulanis and killing them. And sometimes with the complicity of the government. And so Again, we have to be very, very cautious of what we say and what we don't say. Just judging from these events, this particular event, from what we know publicly, I saw there was somebody there speaking in French, trying to interview the crowd. There were military people standing there in arms. And so ask yourself the question, where were these armed guys, the military, when this onslaught took place in the village? Where were they with their arms? They have several military camps there. Where were they? And of course, here you see a report from the governor, a report from the mayor, who are all one-sided reporting. They don't ask themselves, how did it get to this level? They blame so-called separatists for not just cause. I've had time to say that the Mororos and the Fulanis have been living side by side for centuries, if not just decades. They were there before 1960, before 1961, they lived like that, and they've been there. They've not been fighting each other. And so what is the problem? They will tell you there's a farmer-glacial issue. If that is the case, I've said many times before, that's a problem that should have been resolved many years ago. Farmer-glacial issues do not exist only in Cameroon. They exist in Nigeria or wherever you have the glacial population with the farming population. The government can regulate and they should handle that problem carefully. It can be handled, it should be handled. If it is not handled, it is deliberate neglect. It is something neglected to punish the people. And then, of course, we ask ourselves the question. Again, the government puts out those things we're going to investigate. Like any other investigation I've said many times before, no results will come out. If the results will come out, nobody will ever be held accountable. Why? Because at the very end of the day, 5 fingers are pointing to yourself. 5 fingers are pointing to the state. The state bears direct and indirect responsibility for all what went on there. And then again, it's judged from the character of the attacks. We saw people died, they burnt a few houses, then they killed livestock, they killed cows. If they were Amba guys, what have they got to do with the cows? They will not kill cows. That's not the target for a war. So from the character of the attack, you find that there's a hidden and something buried inside, some hatred. Cows cross along as crops. So if you investigate carefully, you find something based on farmer-glacial disputes. They kill the cows because these are the cows that do them harm when they come to eat their crops. But why has the government not done anything I've asked many times before? These are just, I can call 14. It's a very big number, but they are only one of the several big numbers we have seen. We've all mentioned Pinyin. Forget about Garbo, we mentioned Pinyin. In Pinyin, the government organized, got children put in a hotel, massacred them, carried them in trucks like game. And nobody has been held accountable, no excuse given because they are doing that in the pretext of war. If this is the pretext that they are doing this, if they are involved, and I think they are, because they have instrumentalized the communities there, bribed people, the Bororos, to fight the Fulanis, and vice versa. That is clear. Remember that just last week, or early this week, we were dealing in this film program. We saw somebody sitting down there who had been caught with a gun. And what did he say? He told the people he told us who are giving him the gun publicly to go down and harass the other communities in the same area. What has happened to that guy? What has the government done? Nothing. Why? Because the people who are giving out these arms are government agents. Kangala Gerard, who comes from from Dongamontu, claim not to know. He knows. He's a parliamentarian, he's a deputy. And in Cameroon, once a deputy of the nation. And so he's from Cambe, that's his constituency. He's also a deputy of the nation. They can intervene everywhere and anywhere in Cameroon. Just like the 180 others who are in parliament. All of them there are deputies of the nation. What have they done as far as this is concerned? Collectively, nothing. Individually, nothing. They are closing their eyes to all the crimes for a purpose. They are taught, and they still think, that waging war and killing civilians will make the population to rise against the struggle. It has not happened, will not happen, and again, if this thing is a farmer gracier issue, it should never go down to this level to take the human life that it has taken. After all, we are fighting over farmland, over grazing land. It is for people to survive. I don't want to imagine that this thing was about the Ambazonian struggle for restoration. Because it has nothing to do with that. Killing pregnant women, killing children, killing old people, burning down people's houses is not our goal. But burning people's houses, killing people innocently has been the practice by our opponents. I wonder how many villages have they burned down? Without question asked, without asking what these people have done. They count them in their thousands or hundreds. How many people have they shot without asking question? We count them in their thousands or hundreds. How many times have they tried to use this very strategy to instrumentalize people among themselves, to create enemies so that they could fight Ambazonia or call it the rebels? That has been done so clearly many times before. And the narrative from the beginning asks, why is the international community so silent? How many more people shall lose their lives innocently? How many more women and children shall die before our neighbors, before other sympathizers around the world will raise their voices to say, enough is enough. Enough is enough, it must. The war must end, it must. There must be peace, it must. But whether the war ends or there's peace, it's not dependent on Ambazonian fighters. It's not dependent upon the Ambazonian government in exile, or even those at home. It is dependent on the people who declared the war. It's they who have been waiting for them to come down and address the root cause of the problem. We've been waiting for them to pull out their army, and the suspicion that they are the ones responsible would disappear with it. But as long as they have not done this, they remain fully responsible. And I challenge them openly. Let them bring the perpetrator to book. Let them be taken to court. From the evidence in court, we will know who was responsible. But I doubt 90% if they will do that, because they have a lot to hide. They have been hiding a lot before. They have much more to hide from their own crimes. And so, again, as far as Ambazonia is concerned, the liberation war, the restoration war should never have taken this course. It has not taken this course. It is just a distraction. People are trying to deceive the public. Again, we challenge them to investigate and bring the perpetrators to court. And we'll see those who perpetrated those acts. If they were really Amba boys, if they were really separatists, only nature will tell. But the facts must unveil the truth. That facts, we the Ambazonian government, as I will not have the capacity to investigate, talk less of bringing people to justice. They have. Let them do it. They didn't do it in Garibu. They have not done it in Kwakwa. They have not done it in Mabutu. Let them do it today to clear their names if that is possible. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Barrister. All right, and we still have some other reports here. Reports of an indefinite suspension of the U.S. immigration visa application for Cameroons have sparked alarm across southern Cameroons, a nation already battered by years of armed war, displacement, and humanitarian collapse. According to Fox News, new guidance issued under the administration of President Donald Trump instructs consular offices to deny immigrant visas to applicants deemed likely to rely on public benefits. The guidance reportedly affects Cameroon and 74 other countries, placing a pause on immigration visa categories such as the diversity visa program with U.S. immigration procedures are reassessed. Now, the State Department will use its long-standing authority to deem ineligible potential immigrants who would become a public charge of the United States. State Department spokesperson Tommy Picot said, adding that immigration from the affected countries would be paused during the review process. While the reported ban is set to take effect on January 21st, uncertainty remains over whether other visa categories will also be affected. As of first time, the U.S. Embassy in Yaoundé has not issued any official clarification. But here are the points we are looking at tonight. A nation already at breaking point. That's for the people of Southern Cameroons. We all know that Southern Cameroons at this point are in their breaking point. The reported visa ban is being viewed as a devastating blow to an already traumatized people. Because since 2016, Southern Cameroon has been the epicenter of a brutal conflict marked by extrajudicial killings, mass arrests, village burnings, and widespread displacement. Entire communities have been uprooted, with hundreds of thousands forced to flee their homes. Many now live as internally displaced persons, while others survive as refugees in neighboring countries under their conditions. The crisis has crippled every aspect of daily life. Schools across the nation, the southern Cameroons, have been repeatedly shut down, leaving countless children without education for years. Farmlands have been abandoned, businesses destroyed, and access to healthcare severely limited due to insecurity and limited operations. For many families, survival itself has become a daily struggle. US immigration so far became a lifeline for those people, a lifeline against this backdrop. Unlawful migration, particularly through the US immigrant visa programs. It has long represented one of the few remaining avenues of hope for Southern Cameroonians. For victims of the war, immigration is not a matter of economic convenience, but a path to safety, stability, and dignity. Many applicants see relocation as a chance to escape violence, access education and healthcare, and rebuild lives shattered by the war. Remittances from the diaspora also serve as a critical lifeline for families trapped in southern Cameroons. An indefinite halt to immigrant visas threatens to cut off this lifeline entirely. Activists and community leaders warn that the policy risks further isolating southern Cameroons at a time when internal protection and humanitarian support are mostly needed. This is also a new trial for long-suffering people, for southern Cameroonians who have endured years of violence, displacement, and political marginalization. The reported US visa ban is being described as yet another trial, one that compounds their suffering and narrows their already limited options for survival. Many applicants have spent years navigating complex immigration processes, paying costly fees, and undergoing medical and security checks, often while living in precarious conditions. The sudden possibility of an indefinite suspension leaves families in limbo, their future uncertain. Oh well, Barrister Mbeseha, this is really sad at this point. For some other countries, well, you can say that Southern Cameroons are not the only ones affected, but I have tried to give reasons why theirs is very sad for this situation. I mean, this was supposed to be an avenue where people go out to help themselves and all of that. Barrister, what would you say about this?
Well, one thing I would say from the beginning is that the US immigration system is complex and complicated. It's not as simple as we just say it here. There are so many things involved, different categories of visas. The one who are actually in distress, who have run from the war front, they don't fall in this visa program. They don't fall here because nobody runs away from the war front, call it in Kambe or like talk now in and move down to go to the embassy and ask for a visa. No, these are not people who do that. These people are in that category, generally go on foot. They pass through Mexico, they get through everywhere and get to US. They are not going to ask for visas. Their own category is called asylum seekers. Though very, very restricted, it is still open. If you're an asylum seeker and you make your case, you have access to the US. So what they put there, which is very interesting, is according to them, which is not yet explained, those will be of a public charge. How do you see somebody with the face and say this guy will become a man in the street? It is just emphasizing what has been going on. If you went to the embassy, for example, to ask for a visa, which is called B1 or B2, visitor's visa, to come to the US, it has always been there. They will seek to know whether the man you are going to visit or the person you are going to visit has the means to keep you there, a place to house you, to feed you. So it's not a free ride. Until you satisfy that condition, they will not give you a B1 or B2, that is visitor's visa. The other visa program that they are trying to look at are the F1 and the F2. That is student visa. Nobody just works from Cameroon or anywhere else in the world into a US university. These are students. There must be a scholarship for you. There must somebody who will pay. American schools are not free. And so you have to prove that you have the financing to go to school here for you to have the be F1 or F2. You must have a source of income to show. And I think they say there's some school required to deposit $10,000, others more, to be sure that you don't become dependent on the public. Who is dependent on the public? It's an American who has nowhere to go, who has no house to live in, who has no food to eat. That's the category of people. But the Cameroonians just fit into this group. Now you have to prove your worth to come here. The other group that they have mentioned about is the lottery visa. The lottery visa was instituted many, many years ago. It's not a free gift, but you don't just get a lottery and come here. When you win the lottery, you have to prove that you can be able to survive here. Not by depositing cash. You show a background. What are you doing? Are you a mechanic, for example, where you can get to America and become a mechanic and make money for yourself? Are you a tailor? Are you a restaurant runner? Because all those categories of employment are found also in the US. Until you meet this requirement, even if you win the lottery, they will let you go. The first thing is that you're coming in for the first time, you have to look for a sponsor. Who is going to because they call it green card. A green card is a document that entitles you to work. Because they have checked and found out you're a banker in Cameroon, you're a technician in Africa or anywhere else in the world. You know that when you get here, they give you that green card, within months, you find your feet on the ground. So that is not a new condition. I think the president is just trying to make politics out of nothing. It has never been a free ride for everybody. But they are putting in more restrictions. Maybe instead of requiring $10,000, the best thing for them to do, or that they believe in, is live in that territory forever. You live for somewhere else because life home has become untenable. And so, again, we are waiting for the details from the American embassy in Yaoundé and all other embassies around the world for what they really mean. What are the requirements? But again, this is not the end of the world. Whatever will be the requirement, I think some people, if not all, will still qualify. Work hard. If you want to come to the US for visa for studies, read hard because they don't just take anybody. Make sure you have your backing. You will get a school that will admit you. They have not stopped admission of foreign students. They have simply put difficult conditions for them to come in. And when you come here, know that you're going to be in the public church. It's so different from Cameroon. It's not like in Cameroon or in Ambazonia where you go and make your PhD in Mbeseha. You go on strike and one that they should make you a university professor. No. University professors in the United States, some of them are cooks. So they become the thing, PhD holders. So it's not a thing that you say, well, you came me out. I've seen people who came to this country with doctorate degrees. They have not done as good as those who came here as drivers. The ones who came here as drivers have survived better. And so don't be discouraged. It's the thing we don't want. But the American government has the right, the powers to do what they want to do. We cannot influence them making their policy. We can be able to circumvent them by working hard. That's all about it. Since we're only one of the several countries, 75 countries I'm told, we suggest that if Cameroon and Ambazonia are concerned, we're not specifically targeted. We're in a large category of 75 nations around the world. And so how bad it is, we'll wait again to see the fine prints, the details from the embassy when they do come out. Over to you.
All right, thank you so much, Barrister. Let's see how it goes. Meanwhile, allegations that 55 billion CFA francs were diverted from the Port Authority of Douala in neighboring French Cameroon are resurfacing familiar grievances in Ambazonia. Money drawn from their labor and trade keeps disappearing into opaque colonial state spending, while their towns remain trapped in war, darkness, and neglect. In French Cameroon, tension is rising within its political and administrative circles, following reports that as much as 55 billion francs CFA francs may have been siphoned from its Port Authority of Douala. The revelation, first published by CamMeb, linked the suspected diversion to security spending ahead of the 2025 presidential election. Cyrus Sungo, Director General of the PAD, has again been summoned before the Colonial Special Criminal Court. According to available information, the funds were earmarked to reinforce security services, including the Colonial Police Gendarmerie, the Rapid Intervention Battalion, and the LR Directorate General for External Research in anticipation of possible post-election unrest. However, record shows that 8 billion CFA francs had already been allocated for similar purposes through the National Hydrocarbons Corporation, raising questions about why additional sums were required and where they ultimately went. The controversy has renewed debate over how revenue generated at the Port of Douala is used. As French Cameroon's main maritime gateway, the port channel income derived largely from goods, agricultural exports, and commercial activities linked to all three zones of Amazonia. Critics argue that while this wealth is steadily extracted, little of these funds or finds its way back to the southern Cameroon's communities that produce it. Instead, Ambazonian towns continues to face prolonged power cuts, displacement, insecurity, and crumbling infrastructure, conditions that contrasts sharply with the scale of funds mobilized for the colonial regime's security. For many residents, the PAD scandal fits a long-standing pattern in which money taken from their country is redirected to sustain the colonial central authority rather than address local needs. Justice say the case emerged after an unannounced inspection by the Colonial Directorate General of Taxation, an operation that reportedly unsettled its senior officials. Cyrus Sungo is said to have defended himself by citing instructions from higher colonial authorities, a claim that shifts attention beyond individual responsibility to the broader system governing public finances. To many Southern Cameroonians, the issue is no longer just about alleged embezzlement, but about a structure in which their wealth finances colonial states' survival while their communities are left to endure the consequences. Barrister Mbeseha. Very sad one, but this is what it is. Can we get your thoughts, sir?
Well, those are sad, but to me, it's just the practice. I've always said that Cameroon as a government, they are a group of armed robbers. They're thieves. There's no doubt about that. Forget about the 55 billion. The 55 billion is coming from the Douala Port Authority. That's money that everybody pays, Chadians pay, whoever transporting the Central Africans pay, they make money out of it. And then they steal 55 billion. Not accounted for, they stolen it. But what's very important to me is the 80 billion from SNH. All the money in SNH is 99% Ambazonian money. It's money coming from Sonora and related products. There's no other gas field. They don't have gas fields in Cameroon. They belong to us. It's our money. Ambazonians, I mean. 80. What were they doing with 80 billion? Officially, they stole the money to run elections. What do they mean by that? What do they mean by that? So, the year of elections, the election did not feature in the budget. It featured in the budget. Why did the 80 billion not feature in the budget? They got the 80 billion. There were only 11 candidates. How much did they give to each of the candidates? All the money given to all the parties in contest was not even up to a billion. 15 million, something like that. And so what happened to the rest of the money? They shared it among themselves. They stole the money as usual. I've said the gang that runs the government of Cameroon in Yaoundé, they have theft in their DNA. It's difficult to avoid it, but that is part and parcel of their lifestyle. The money from the hydrocarbon itself, SNH, is managed by a family. The director general of that thing, the Bulu man, is not even there. He has been sick for years. When he's not there, his wife takes over and runs it the way they want. And we have been told many times before, money from this SNH or petrol or gas, what you call it, the accounts are only reflected at the presidency. The president gives no account to anybody. He is not held accountable for anything. The director general of the SNH steals what he wants. He sends the rest to the presidency to do what they want with it. And if they care, for example, like in Gidado, like they do issue right now, they can go there and move 1 million, 10 million and say, oh, presidential gift. Now, Tanganji will come there and say, money from President Paul Biya, as if that was his personal money. One asks the question whether Paul Biya earns a salary and whether that money is part of his salary. You know? That's the very money where you find Chantal Biya and Brenda Biya in particular riding jets. Unemployed little girl is flying in jets. Where did he get the money? They're not working. They put the girl in school. She cannot pass an exam. She's not working anywhere. They ask, how is she flying in jets? How is she living in 5-star hotels in Switzerland? That is all our money. I mean, our money, not Cameroon money, Ambazonia money being stolen. And so that's the bigger picture to me, not 55 billion. If somebody is being expected to be held accountable, nobody will be held accountable because Saros and God, who is put there, they are put in those places for a purpose. They belong to the family by bloodline or by other association. And so it is one scandal too many. The scandal is there. But until the Cameroonians are prepared, I don't mean Ambazonians, until the Cameroonians are prepared to rise up and say, look, this 55 billion stolen could have even docked all the provided water for everybody to drink there. Boreholes. We dig all the boreholes down here in Cameroon, and nobody will complain of water. We'll provide electricity to every village, and we'll have no problem. The problem will be solved. But where the money is gone, people have no water to drink, talk less of even having a road on which to drive. Absolutely nothing. We've seen the events in Buea, in Motengene, in Bamenda, and around the world where there is no road. 55 billion could have constructed many more roads. But what are these people doing with this money? They keep it in foreign banks. Or at best, what did they do? They build mansions in Yaoundé and stock the money cash there. They've seen all these things. They have been caught with this cash. Nobody has ever been punished for that. They let you go. Because they are put in that place, Saros and God and others are put there for a purpose. The purpose is to steal, to share the money with the presidential family and the presidential entourage. And so what is new there? That is spent 55 billion in elections? No. They bribed people. They even tell you that the security they provided after election cost them so many billion. Why? Election was predictable. Elections were coming. Everybody knew that. Even right today, we know election will come 5-7 years after. So why do you need to go into debt to do that? And so all those explanations don't hold. They are just something to cover themselves. Because as I've just said, the DNA of Cameroon Republic is a DNA of theft. There are other armed robbers going on with guns, or armed robbers going on with pens and bank accounts they cannot know. But bottom line, they are armed robbers. Because if I say this in Yaoundé, they will arrest me anyway. They lock me up. Only other person for them to challenge them. And so this is what we are up to. Of course, we are saying no. We didn't sign up for this public graft, underdevelopment, impunity, and what you have. This is too much. This is too much. We'll complain because we have known in West Cameroon, Southern Cameroon, we call it, there were commissions of inquiries that would investigate the port authorities. That's something that investigated the power camp at the time. That Commission of Inquiry in GCAM, they investigated the lands and surveys. And so the people were held accountable after all these investigations. I've never heard of one in Yaoundé. There is none. If there was one, it will go nowhere. Because the legal system, which is legal system, if somebody has been found to be stealing that money, you cannot charge the guy to court until the president authorizes you. And since the presidential appointee is a member of the family, will you expect him, if you are my wife, do you expect me to sign your own death warrant? I wouldn't. And so it's a waste of time. They have set up structures there. They have set up all the loopholes that would for impunity. And so whether it is 55 billion from SNH, whether it is 80 billion from port authorities, or 80 billion from SNH, it is all theft. But the victims by the majority are Ambazonians. The 80 billion from SNH could have done all the roads we needed in southern Cameroon, Ambazonia. Could have put all electricity in every single village we wanted. But here we are. There's no water in Boya. There's no electricity in Bamenda. There's no road in Kambe. There's nothing in Akwaya. And that's the punishment that we must go through. That's the reason for which we must fight and fight until we set ourselves free. Over to you.
Yes, and that's the reason why all Ambazonians must fight and fight. Also tonight from French Cameroon's growing dependence on foreign loans is shrinking its national budget, but the consequences are not shared equally as debt repayment swallows public funds. Southern Cameroon once again finds itself at the back of the line, paying into a system that returns little while basic services continues to collapse under colonial government's neglect. La Republic to Cameroon's heavy reliance on external borrowing to finance large infrastructure projects has placed the country under increasing budgetary strain. Official figures from its Ministry of Economy and Planning shows that more than 7.5 billion CFA has been raised to fund projects in transport, energy, and water. Yet, despite these headline investments, the lived reality in many parts of Ambazonia remains one of decay and abandonment. External debt servicing has nearly tripled in just 4 years, climbing from under 300 billion francs CFA in 2020 to more than 800 billion CFA in 2024. Over the last decade, almost 2.6 billion CFA has been diverted to repay loans and interest. This growing burden has eaten deep into its state's budget, leaving fewer resources for healthcare, education, infrastructure maintenance, and post-war reconstruction. In southern Cameroon communities, the impact is especially severe. While citizens contribute burdensome taxes and resources to the colonial national purse, roads remain impassable, hospitals remain under-equipped, schools damaged or completely abandoned, and entire communities displaced by war the Biya regime has failed to resolve. Debt repayment take priority, while rebuilding destroyed towns in the Savannah, Midland, and Atlantic zones of Ambazonia is treated as optional. La Republic de Cameroon's debt profile has also worsened in structure, not just size. Interest rates are higher, repayment periods shorter, and exposure to foreign currency risks, particularly the US dollar, has intensified. As a result, the debt to GDP ratio is approaching 40%, pushing the country into a high risk debt category. These financial pressures give the colonial government an excuse it regularly uses to justify cuts, delays, and artistry, cuts that Ambazonia feels first and longest. The growing dominance of non-pari club bilateral lenders, especially China, alongside costly commercial loans, has further weakened its financial position. Yet, there is little transparency about how these funds are allocated or why areas most affected by war and displacement see minimal benefit. Projects are announced nationally, but their outcomes are rarely visible in Ambazonian towns and villages. While resources are mobilized in the name of national development and debts are accumulated in the name of progress, the burden is carried by ordinary citizens, particularly Ambazonians. Meanwhile, the benefits are concentrated elsewhere. Barrister Mbeseha, the benefits are concentrated elsewhere. Yes, we know they need to fight, but when the benefits keep concentrating elsewhere, how much more longer can they fight?
Well, in summary, we must agree on something so common. There's no pride anywhere else in the world in being a debtor. Even in the family home where you live, if you live in your house and you must borrow money to eat, you must borrow money to buy water, you are a debtor. There's no pride in that. You are an independent person where you can go to the farm and make your own food and eat by yourself.
Volume.
Where you can be your own house and live inside. Where you can go around the street with your own bicycle. But if everything in your life depends upon borrowing, you are a debtor perpetually. You are a poor man. We were talking about in the last segment about the Americans insisting that people should not come here to be poor. Why? Because the public gives you that thing because you don't have. If you will not have it, then you are no longer a debtor. I don't know what you call yourself. Because when you are young, you take a debt to buy your clothes, to be a house. As you grow older, you are expected to become independent by paying back your debt. But remember that Cameroon is 65 years old. They will soon be a century. A person in his 60s is still a debtor. You are not ever going to recover. And once it comes to debt, the point is that when the money comes in, because it's scarce, in addition to stealing, the distribution will not be fair. You give it to the people that you think benefit best. You give it to your own people, not to everybody. So it is digging roads. I take a loan. You will not go spending your money digging a ring road, for example. Man, why not concentrate on the Samilima road? Why not concentrate on the Dwara on the road? What does it pay to go and borrow money and go and dig a ring road or dig the Kumba Mamfi road? It doesn't pay you politically. And so that is the sum total of the debt. Shall Cameroon ever be clear of this debt? They will never, because I've said they are born in theft. The money comes in even as loan, it is stolen. It is not invested where it is supposed to go. And so what do? They end up having something which they call development, which is not development. We have sat here many times and talked about Sonara. No, not Sonara, a new, that is electricity company, where they bring and install transformers that blow energy or they never even function. Why? Because they want to buy cheap ones. Either because they bribe or because they don't have enough money. The buy one will not function. They are crying about electricity. They can't put one there. But of course, for them to put one there, you can't get bribe. The next day, thing is blown off. So what if you had the money and went to the factory and bought a new one? Rather than go and buy a refurbished computer, a new computer. Again, this is the beginning of theft. I remember way back in the early 2000s when they introduced computer schools. Something happened. One time the Ministry of Education said they were going to provide computers for secondary schools. I have a friend who won the contract to supply the computers. Desktops. This guy went to South Africa, published desktops, several thousands of them, and brought them to Cameroon there and deposited them in the Ministry of Secondary Education. And what would they do? They would say, okay, the principal of government high school in Kambe or Mbengui, wherever, come and take a computer. They give you a traveling warrant. You live in Kambe or Mbengui or wherever it is, or Mamfe, and spend 2 weeks in Yaoundé to take a refurbished computer. By the time you get to Mamfe or Mbengui, there's no electricity, it's not even working. You throw it away. But the money has been spent. I just sat here, that very program. There's a technical school in my village. There's no electricity. They purported to supply an electric typewriter to that school. I saw the budget. Costing 1.5 million. An electric typewriter, what is being thrown away here? I had someone in my house. I wasn't doing anything there. But what was the guy even going to do with an electric typewriter in the school where there's no electricity? Well, it was supplied to steal. And recently, very recently, remember, talk about that. We saw the Ministry of Higher Education go to China. They took a loan of 15 billion to buy what they call tablets, laptops for students in the universities. They have not paid the debt. Those things they supply to students, the selected few, the thing did not even work. The money is gone. The laptops are not there. The minister becomes rich. Nobody is holding him accountable for it. And so loans in Cameroon are also a source of making money by the administration, by those in political power. They use this idea of loans and make money. And again, I remember the story I heard this on it. Earlier in the time of Ahijo made a trip to China. Remember that thing they call the Palais de Congrès? It was built by the Chinese. When Ahijo went to China, they entered into a negotiation. I think I went with the Muna, Ministry of Peace. They gave them money for development. So, okay, because they were trying to buy access to Cameroon, they gave them some money. Take this home as a reward for development. What did they do? They sat there then in China, distributed the money. Everybody took his own and opened a bank account somewhere in Europe before they came back to Cameroon. And so that was it. That was gone. Nobody is being held accountable for it. But they're taking their money. And so there are so many examples similar to this that I've just mentioned. Because nobody is to be held accountable. Loans are a source of stealing. Because when they do come, there are so many that you can even mention. Remember that just 2019, 5-6 years ago, with the COVID-19, a lot of money was deployed to different countries to assist in COVID-19. The two, the owners stole it. Their accounts, their reports there, written down in black and white by the rightful institutions how the money was stolen. And then, of course, when we talk about campaign, we talk about 80 billion. What do? The very people will go and order CPDM wrapper from China, steal the money there, and bring it back. And right there sometime in Cameroon. And during the COVID, in that program of helping the people, there's a Ministry of Scientific Research in Cameroon there. They went and ordered medication, bought some cheap medication from India, came back to Cameroon and labeled them made in Cameroon and stole the money. This is scientific research. These people are supposed to be very, very high up there educationally. If they can do this, the minister is sitting there, has gone nowhere. The directors are still sitting there, they have gone nowhere. They have no factory, they have nothing. They brought medicine from cheap medicine from India, brought there, made in Cameroon, and went free. It's on the popular record, not me inventing it. And so if people can be so callous and go free, what do you expect from such a government? The only thing you can do, if it is possible, is to escape from it, which is why we're escaping. We have escaped and we'll continue to escape. And when we get to where we are, we'll rebuild. We'll fix it. We'll take the pieces where they are. We'll rebuild. And I can say this with certainty. 10 years down the road, after that final separation, we shall be better than the Republic of Cameroon. They will come to us for loans. They will come to us for technical assistance. They will come to us for what they are getting from France, for what they are getting from the United States and other places in Europe. They will not pay us the money. We will do those services free of charge. Over to you.
Right. Thank you so much, Barrister. They will definitely get all of those services free of charge. Thank you so much, Barrister, for coming to tonight's Undaunted. Hopefully on Saturday we'll see you here dissecting all of the topics that will be brought to the front border on Ambazonia this week. Thank you so much, sir, for coming.
Thank you for having me.
All right, when we return right after the break, we'll head into Africa, where Trump and TPS forced to Mali, forcing departures by March 17. The Trump administration has announced it will end temporary protected status for Somalia, a move that will affect several thousand Somali nationals currently living in the United States, including several hundred residents in Minnesota. Under the decision, Somali migrants who have been living and working legally in the U.S. under TPS will be required to leave the country by March 17th unless they are able to secure another form of legal immigration status. TBS is a humanitarian process that allows people from countries facing armed conflicts, natural disasters, or extraordinary conditions to remain in the U.S. temporarily. Department of Homeland Security Secretary Christine Noam said the administration determined that conditions in Somalia have improved enough to no longer justify their destination temporary means temporary. Naum said in a statement to Fox News Digital, country conditions in Somalia have improved to the point that it no longer meets the law's requirements for temporary protected status. Naum added that continuing the program would conflict with the administration's immigration priorities, further allowing Somali nationals to remain temporarily in the United States in contrary to their national interests, she said. We are putting Americans first. The decision has raised alarm among the immigrant advocates and Somali American community leaders, particularly in Minnesota, which is home to one of the largest Somali populations in the nation. Advocates say many TPS holders have lived in the U.S. for years or even decades, raised families, and become deeply rooted in their communities. They warned that forcing people to return to Somalia could expose them to ongoing security risks, economic hardship, and political instability. TPS for Somalia has been repeatedly extended by previous administrations due to persistent violence, humanitarian crisis, and fragile governance in the country. Ending the designation represents a significant policy shift and aligns with the Trump administration's broader effort to scale back humanitarian immigration programs and narrow eligibility for temporary protections. With the March 17 deadline approaching, affected individuals are being urged by legal aid groups to consult immigration attorneys to explore possible alternatives such as asylum claims or family based visas. However, advocates know that such options are often limited, expensive, and difficult to obtain, leaving many Somali TPS holders facing an uncertain future. Somali is not just here. The southern Cameroons and Cameroons are here as well. We'll definitely give you updates as that report continues to emerge. When we come back right after the break, we'll give you this report from the Globe that says the US secures $500 billion from first Venezuelan oil sale under new energy deal. The United States has completed its first sale of Venezuelan crude oil under a newly negotiated energy agreement, securing roughly 500 million in revenue. US officials confirmed the transaction marks the first major Venezuelan oil export under US control in years and signals a sharp shift in bilateral relations following recent political upheaval in Caracas. The sale is part of a broader $2 billion framework agreement that authorizes Washington to market Venezuelan crude to global buyers. Officials say additional exports are imminent, with plans to sell 30 to 50 million barrels in the initial phase as the U.S. reintroduces Venezuelan oil to international markets, including U.S. Gulf Coast refineries. Proceeds from the transactions are being held under U.S. government oversight, with a principal account based in Qatar to minimize legal risks and potential asset seizures. The financial structure was established through recent execution action, ensuring U.S. control over revenues while longer term agreements are negotiated. The White House has framed the deal as a historic step towards reviving Venezuela's collapsed oil industry while benefiting Americans' energy security. U.S. officials are in talks with major oil companies, including Chevron, about expanded operating roles and investment in Venezuela's aging production infrastructure. Venezuela hosts the world's largest proven crude reserves, making their agreement geopolitically significant. Analysts say renewed access to Venezuelan heavy crude could diversify supply for U.S. and allied refiners and influence global oil flows after years of sanctions and underinvestment, curtailed experts. The deal has also sparked debate over sovereignty, legality, and the future use of proceeds, while officials say funds could eventually support infrastructure repair or humanitarian needs. How and when revenues will be disbursed remains unresolved as further sales and negotiations continues in the weeks ahead. And that's it for tonight's Undaunted. Bringing to the news on Untold Stories. Before we go, let's take a look at the news that made it to the headlines. Tonight on Undaunted, we told you that 14 civilians killed, 10 injured in early morning attack in Gidado village. Also, indefinite U.S. veto ban threatens to deepen sufferings of southern Cameroon's communities. Tonight, we took a look at the questions mount over 55 billion CFA as Ambazonia's wealth vanishes into colonial state accounts, while French Cameroon's rising debt tightens the nose on Ambazonian zones. Tonight on the African scene, we told you that US has secured 500 million from first Venezuelan oil sale on the new energy, while on the global scene, we told you that Trump's administration ends temporary protected status for Somalis, forcing thousands to leave US by March 17. And that's it for tonight's Undaunted. Bringing to the news on Untold Stories. On behalf of Barrister Mbeseha and a team of technicians behind tonight's production, is good night and God bless.